Hello everyone and welcome to today's EAUC webinar. The title of this webinar is Creating Green Graduates, Engaging Students with Sustainability in Every Step of Their Journey, and will last approximately an hour. It is in the Student Engagement Life Framework, and in terms of competency level, it is at On the Road. Thank you for registering, and thanks also to today's speakers. We have Dr. Sandra Lee and Hazel Chan from the University of Leicester. My name is Emma, and I'm the Member Events and Communities Officer here at the EAUC. If you have any specific event, webinar or training requests, I will be happy to talk to you at any time. I also work with our community groups, so as a member of the EAUC, I encourage you to join one of our communities of practice or regional groups. More information about these and how to join can be found on the Member Zone on our website. You may have previously attended or heard of exchange webinars. These are continuing, but due to their popularity, we have developed a new range of EAUC webinars. These are for EAUC members only and are an added benefit of your membership. They are more detailed with clear learning outcomes, expert speakers, and will allow for more complex topics. They will last between an hour and an hour and a half, depending on the topic. Shortly after the webinar has finished, you will receive a certificate of attendance to place on your personal development file as a record of today's training. So there's just a little bit of housekeeping to go over now. I'm hoping that everyone can hear me well. I have muted you all just to avoid any background noise, and you will continue to be muted throughout the webinar. If you're having any technical issues at all throughout this webinar, please let me know either by posting it in the on-screen chat box just below the participant list on the right, or sending me an email to easton@eauc.org.uk. Although you will continue to be muted, we will give you the opportunity to speak and be unmuted, and Sandra will discuss more about that shortly. Hopefully most of you do have working microphones or are connected through a phone. Don't worry if not, as you'll have the opportunity to ask any questions at the end or during the discussion time. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be uploaded as a resource with all the presentations later on. Please feel free to share these resources with any colleagues or fellow EAUC members. Once the webinar has finished, you will be sent a short survey for us to gain your feedback. Please take a few minutes to complete this survey, as the results will help us to improve our future CPD and events. So that's all from me for now. Thank you again for registering, and I'll now pass you over to Sandra.
Good. We're on afternoon now, aren't we? Good afternoon. It's kind of weird that you can't respond back. I've done webinars before where people can respond, so I'll have to just hope you're all listening. So thanks for attending, and I hope you've got a cup of tea and you're quite comfy. The good news is that we're not going to ramble on at you for an hour. I want most of this to be a discussion. What we're going to do is share some of the things that we've done with our case study. You know, we've made mistakes, we faced obstacles, but we're also really keen for you to share your experience too. I'm sure you're doing stuff that we haven't thought of, so I'd like it to be more of a discussion. So we'll talk about the concept of green graduates and why we should have them, and then we'll talk about some stuff that we did. Because you're all muted, what we're going to do, I'm going to start off and then Hazel's going to take over. So we have another computer. So if you have any questions as you go along, can you please stick them in the chat box, and we'll either reply back on the chat or I'll respond back verbally, and then we can open the discussion when we've all been unmuted afterwards. So I hope that makes sense. So please do use the chat box. Let's make this as interactive as possible. Don't just go to sleep. So, right, okay, right. Bear with me a second while I think, Emma, you might have to remind me how to share my screen again.
No problem. If you just go over to the Quick Start tab.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yes. Brilliant. Okay, that should be up now. Great. Okay, so how to create green graduates? Well, first of all, what is a green graduate? Well, as a business, universities tend to have two main products. We have research and we have graduates. So students in, customers out, graduates out. Now, at Leicester, we produce medics, scientists, engineers, lawyers, archaeologists, and many more from all over the world. So what do they all have in common? Well, not much really, except a kind of penchant for super dry clothing, Facebook, and smartphones. And that's about it. So how can we turn these guys into green graduates? So green graduates obviously have a university qualification of some description. They are employable, which employability is a really big buzzword in universities at the moment. They display some kind of sustainable behaviours in their own personal life, be that an awareness of recycling or not driving everywhere. But importantly, they have an understanding of the sustainability agenda and can apply it to their chosen careers. So it's not just about geography graduates or whether they have actually studied this. This is about the medics, the lawyers, the historians and everything that we're going to produce. It's about them understanding how sustainability works in whatever sector they end up in. Bear with my animation. So there you go, there's a green graduate. She's one of our sub officers actually. So it's pretty tough out there at the moment. 1 in 10 recent graduates are unemployed. More than 1 in 3 recent graduates are employed in a lower skilled job compared to 1 in 4 in 2001. And almost half of the UK's recent graduates are working in non-graduate jobs. So it's not a nice economy to be out there. So are we equipping our students for the modern world? Well, universities still view sustainability as an environmental or a philanthropic topic, whereas companies view sustainability as a business strategy and are innovating rapidly, and they're leaving us behind. Sustainability content in universities is often isolated, it's rarely across the whole curricula, and the curricula itself often ignores the growing importance of social issues. So this is, well, I'm going to let you read that for yourself, I don't want to overload. So the new emphasis of sustainability on business and management departments is because businesses are recognizing, particularly in light of the Stern Review of 2006, that spending now on long-term environmental issues will be beneficial and cost-effective in the long term. So why are green graduates good for business? Well, the business case is now really compelling. Before it was a PR thing, it was it was a nice to do, but now there is a firm business case for sustainability. We all know what energy prices are doing, and they're not going to go back the other way. So it affects our core business practice. Most businesses now are ahead of sustainability, and they often have a seat on the board these days, and that's a real shift in thinking. But it's not a shift that we've made in universities, but this is about business. And these are a couple of articles that were obviously from the slightly more left of centre newspapers, but green graduates are a good deal. So do we have a moral obligation as universities to produce these green graduates? Well, it's widely believed that higher education is the route to implanting sustainable lifestyles into society. The educational system is the first place to start to make meaningful change and influence future leaders. I don't want to talk over while you're reading. So universities educate people who then go on to do great things, hopefully. That's kind of our point, that's our output, they're our graduates. So we actually hold a lot of authority, both over our students and on the communities around them. So I believe that we have an obligation to use this power to affect positive change. So do students even care? Do they give a damn about sustainability? Well, I'm sure you're aware that the NUS surveys students about this every year. They have been doing for 2 or 3 years now. And over 80% believe that universities should be investing in sustainability initiatives. And we found ourselves that science students, girls, and those in later years of study are likely to understand the importance of sustainability, be greener, if you like. So last year we ran our own survey at Leicester, and we found that students actually do care quite a lot about the planet. We learned that students expect the university to provide facilities for them to be environmentally friendly whilst they're here. We also found, the same as the NUS, that 80% felt that the university should be investing in sustainability. Interestingly, we found that students really don't relate to terms such as sustainability or carbon dioxide or basically anything that sounds remotely sciencey. Things like sustainable construction didn't mean anything to them, and we did this in focus groups, and this was including a load of science students. But what they liked is words like environmentally friendly, they like recycling, they like waste things. They liked calls to action, words that they could understand. So we have to think about that when we're communicating with students. And most of them told us that they would like to learn more about how they could be sustainable. So they didn't need to be educated about sustainability, obviously depending on where they came from in the world, but most of them understood the importance. What they didn't know was what they could do next. So how do we produce green graduates? Well, the first thing to do is to build a sustainable culture. Are you in a sort of green environment? Is it obvious where you are? Optional sustainability courses, I'll come back to that a bit more, but students want to learn more, so provide them with the opportunity to do so. We've found a lot of success by providing environmental volunteering opportunities, and I know a lot of institutions have done the same, and we can discuss that a bit more. Student projects are a great idea, and I'll talk a little bit more about the idea of a student society into it later on as well. Now, this is the big one that some people are doing really well. I have to say we're not. But we're working on it, which is to incorporate sustainability into the curriculum of every course. Now, that might be quite easy if you're a small institution with a few courses. We're a huge institution, and it's a massive job, but that doesn't mean we can't achieve it. We've also found that rewarding or possibly bribing students works really well as well. Free stuff, particularly T-shirts, hoodies, and cake seem to go down really well. Again, we'll come back to those a little bit more in a moment. So I'm moving on to kind of what we've done. So what we've looked at to build the sustainable culture here is firstly the infrastructure. So made sure that obviously the recycling facilities, the bike facilities, all those sorts of things are there, so that there's really no excuse for students to be sustainable, to have those right behaviours while they're here. I know most of you have probably been involved in Green Impact in some form. We haven't this year, but we were for the first 3 years, I think. But what we found worked particularly well, interestingly, was to have student-led teams. And actually, they tended to outperform the staff-led teams. They quite liked going into departments and telling the staff what to do. And that worked really well in our harder-to-reach departments. We've been fortunate enough to successfully have a Green Fund funded project in our student union. So we have a food growing project that has, obviously it's student led, and the students are really excited about it. They've loved that. So we've been fortunate at that, but yeah, we're lucky. But I think partly because we had such a good relationship with our students in the first place that they even went and put a funding bid together. So that was a very positive thing. I would recommend it to anybody. Lots of events, I'm sure you all do those, but much as we hate organising them, they are very, very useful. Surveys, as I just gave some results, we found surveying students really good, really interesting. You need to know how they think, and also to keep on top of that. And we've been fortunate enough to have an environment officer now in the student union. We sort of trialled it a bit this year, and then next year we will have a full-on part-time environment officer. So he will, he isn't it? We've only just been recruited. He'll be sitting he'll have an office, and then it's his responsibility to take over that. So that's quite nice that there'll be somewhat accountability to student council and things like that. So as much as we can make things student-led, then we are. particularly on the sort of cultural side of things, because students get quite excited about this stuff, and they have lots of ideas. So on the teaching and learning, we have a course called Sustainable Futures, which was developed as part of our iScience course and is an accredited, there's 2 modules, and it's accredited for iScience students and physics students. But what we managed to do was open that up so that other students could attend the modules. They're not accredited, but they are interesting. And we've had a reasonable take-up of that from our volunteer course. Interesting, when you open things up wide, it doesn't seem to work as well as targeted emails to people who've already said that they're interested in sustainability in some way. We have an ESD forum that are mainly academics who sit around and work up ways to get sustainability into the curriculum, and they're doing pretty well. At Leicester, we have a thing called the Leicester Award, where students can go through, they do various things. There's lots of different Leicester Awards. It looks good on their CV. It teaches them lots of skills, lots of employability skills. And for the last 3 years, we've run a Leicester Award for Sustainability, and it's always been the first one to be booked up. And as part of that, the students have to do 20 hours of volunteering and 5 workshops. Hazel can talk, or we can both talk a bit more about that if you're interested. But that's been a great way of getting students involved from all over the place. Generally, it's open to second years, so it's quite nice. So then hopefully we've got them, they get really excited, they get involved in the project, and then we've still got them for another year, which is always nice. It's awful when kids get really involved in the end of their final year, because then of course they go. Student projects are one of my favourite ways of engaging students. I mean, it's free research. We've always got things that we are at capacity, we haven't got time to do, we haven't got time to analyse this data, we haven't got time to research this. And we have thousands of students who every year need dissertation topics. And it always surprises me how much that's an untapped resource. So we always put together, any time through the year that we think, oh, we could do with, you know, we need to research this or the other, and would that make a good student project? And we file it away, and then at the right time of year, which is usually around November time, we contact the relevant departments. Say, have you got any students that would be interested in doing a project on X? And they put it out. And generally we get 2 or 3 each year, and I have to say they've been surprisingly high standard. Obviously you never know what you're going to get with a student project, but they are obviously supervised by their own academics, and we've had some fantastic work. We've also had students do voluntary projects just to develop their own skills, or because it's something they're interested in. And if your project's a little high level for an undergrad, then grab a postgrad. Academic departments are crying out for project ideas. So if you've got the resources or the data for someone to produce a project, go for it. We've also fortunate we've had an intern every year, like Hazel here, that you'll hear from shortly. So interns are absolutely brilliant. I'll come back to why interns are so good. Even if I could have a full-time post, someone doing this, I probably wouldn't, because I like the fact that interns are so in touch. They're fresh graduates and they know how graduates think. Me, I'm a bit long in the tooth. It was a while ago I graduated. We didn't even have Facebook when I graduated. I'm that old. So I'm so out of touch with what students think. And therefore, I'm not the right person to know how to engage with them or what the language is. Whereas someone like Hazel comes in, she's 21, she's just come out of that, she knows exactly what the pulse is of the students, so it makes much more sense. They also teach you how to use social media, which is always very helpful. And finally, we've sort of done quite a lot, as I know a lot of you have, on the volunteering side. My animation catches up, I can't fast forward it. Excuse me. Oh, come on. There we go. So we've had we do loads of volunteering. We've been doing this for years. I don't know why the thing's out. These are some of the things that we've had students get involved with every year, and Hazel's going to go a lot more into the ins and outs of our volunteering scheme, and if you've got any questions, then we can discuss that in a while, but volunteering is a fantastic way of getting students involved. So yes, these are some of the things. We've had some nice pop-ups and things like that. I talked briefly about a student society. This is a new thing for us. We've had student societies in the past, People and Planet and things like that. It hasn't really worked here. I know it has at other organisations. But what we're trying to do now is to bring all our volunteer, all our environmental stuff under a student-led banner. The reason we're trying to do that is, one, it takes the pressure off us having to deliver things, but it also gets us a lot of ins with the student union. I don't know how your student unions are, but ours charges for stalls at Freshers and things like that, you know, they're under the same financial pressures that we are. If you have a student society, you don't have to do that. You don't, that kind of is bypassed because it's student-led. And also, I just think it's better for students' employability. They should be leading on this kind of stuff with our support. It shouldn't be us dragging them. So we've just started on that. We've sort of played around with it for a little bit, and now we're just going for it. So ask us in a year's time how it went. So, how we made it happen, how we got to where we are, and it didn't happen overnight. This is 6 years in the making, and we've still got an awfully long way to go. So I'd be interested in your experiences. But what we did, first of all, and of course with no budget, because none of us have any money, the first thing to do is to set up the right networks. Now for us, this is the Careers Development Service, it's the Student Union, it's your key staff like your champions and Green Impact team, and also specific departments, which for us, the ones we have the best relationship, geography, geology, but also engineering and maths. Wherever we've got sort of relevant students, we have a good relationship with management. But to be perfectly honest, it also depends on who you know. I mean, I get the train to work every day, and I get the train to work with various heads of departments, and that's where a lot of these conversations happen. And then you end up with student projects and Green Impact teams out of it. So, yeah, do chat to people. Works really well. As well as the you also need community volunteering schemes are really helpful because they provide more volunteering opportunities than possibly you've got yourself. Branding is really important. Recognisable, and this is important, non-hippie and not in competition with other volunteering or environmental stuff. So try and bring it all in one banner. Students don't recognise the difference between your volunteering or someone else's volunteering thing or your environment stuff and theirs. They don't see that. They just see them all as one thing. So if you can bring them under one umbrella, we now have a volunteering steering group that did, and I insisted on bringing it all together a couple of years ago. So we meet regularly, and everyone knows the careers, the student union, everyone knows what everyone else is doing, and it's brought under the same databases and the same communication strategies. So the students don't get confused. We're not in competition. But do brand your volunteers and your champions with the right clothing and things like that. Be at Freshers. This is Hazel on the left-hand side here, for those of you who want to see what she looks like. Be at Freshers. You need a big stall, you need freebies, and this is the key thing, you need students to man the stall. Because an old person in a suit, and by old I'm talking anyone approaching 30, as far as the student's concerned, in a suit, it's not going to work. You're not approachable. It's not what they're looking for. So branded students, young smiley faces, get many more sign-ups, much more interest. Obviously make it free as well, because so many things are paid for at Freshers. Regular events. These are some of ours. I'm sure you guys do the same things. Fair Trade Fortnight, we have Conservation Days. The one in the middle was a do or dare thing that the Food Growing Project did. They got the students to eat snails and eat chocolate-coated grasshoppers and things like that. Anyway, it was quite successful. But these are the things that we get students to come and run. We also learned that if we train them, leave them with a stall, and then back off, they're a lot better than if you stand over them watching or trying to manage them, because then they just do as they're told. This is quite an important one. Make it someone else's job. We used our Green Impact intern at first. We've all got our day jobs to do, So delegate as much as possible, and delegate to someone that's probably got more knowledge of students than you do. Likewise, get the students to manage each other, either through a society format or through a formal but unpaid role. For the last couple of years, actually for the last 3 years, I think, we've had a volunteer coordinator who has been in charge of the other, or sort of not in charge of, but sort of running the recording and doing some communications and just sort of managing volunteers at events. And it seems to work much better. They all do it through Facebook. It's quite informal, but it's quite a nice way to do it. Training's important, role-specific and general sustainability stuff, but also employability stuff as well. We found that if we offer things like communications training before students come and help with an event, the event goes a lot better. Because often they just need that confidence, either in the topic that they're talking about or just to go up and talk to people. And if we just arm them, it can just be an hour's workshop. What you get back from them is so much better. Recording and rewarding is quite important as well. Keep an accurate record of the hours that they worked for you so that you can give them out certificates. We give a free hoodie for every 30 hours that volunteers have done for us. It's also good to keep your stats for funding bids and things like that. This picture is of Ram, who's one of our most prolific volunteers over the last few years, proudly showing off his record card. And as you can see, this is not a high-tech system. It's a bit of paper that we do a stamp on. So, you don't have to pay the big bucks on this stuff. Right, I'm going to pass you over now to Hazel because you're probably sick of me talking. So I'm going to pass you over now to our volunteering experts.
Good afternoon all. Hope you enjoyed listening to Sam speak. I'm Hazel. I'm the Communications and Events Coordinator, graduate intern for the Environment team. I'll just be talking a little bit about volunteering, student projects and the do's and don'ts. So first off, for volunteering, we've got a mailing list and we usually create a fresh one every year. And that starts off at Freshers, where we try and gain lots of signatures from Freshers. This year, we've got an average of about 1,000 student volunteers signed up, so that's about 10% of on-campus students. And of course, some of these students that are signed up at the beginning of the year are to be removed from the list, but at the end of the day, the majority of students are still signed up throughout the year, which is fantastic because it shows that they've got an interest in what the environment team does. And we've also currently, although we've got 1,000 people signed up to our mailing list, we've got active volunteers of about 120 to 150 students, which means these students are actively involved in environment team volunteering about once a month. Then we also have the Leicester Award for Sustainability. We've got 25 students signed up to this year, and they each do 20 hours of volunteering, 2 workshops and 5 short assessed tasks. And if you've got any questions about the Leicester Award for Sustainability, then feel free to ask us at the end. We've also got tallied up this year so far 1,500 volunteering hours, but we've still got lots of things with the food growing project going on, such as plot day, so we're still tallying up the hours and we hope to reach about 1,600 by the end of the academic year. And the environment team now delivers approximately 17% of all volunteering at the university, which I think is quite impressive. The other volunteering is run by the Career Development Service, as well as students who set up their own volunteering within the university. And we also communicate with other organisations, whether that be within Leicester or within the rest of the UK, to help promote their events, such as People and Planet, People and Planet's Go Green Week, or the Fair Trade Foundation's Fair Trade Fortnight. We also co-supervise 2 or 3 student dissertations a year, as well as ad hoc short voluntary projects. Every time you have a minor research idea, record it, same in committees. Departments need student project ideas, so if you present a list of them around October to November, you'll be very popular. We're quite lucky that we've got a energy manager who's Chris Powell and a waste officer who's Phil, so if we have students who have certain dissertation ideas or topics related to waste or energy, then we can point them to these guys in the right direction. And as well as student projects, we do have do's and don'ts, and we learned this the hard way. Bear with me a sec. There we go. So the most important thing when you're trying to engage with students is to have regular communication. I send out a weekly newsletter to everyone that's signed up to our mailing list, and this includes a range of volunteering opportunities that we have in the week or that we have coming up in the month. And it's very important to make the newsletter aesthetically pleasing and really eye-catching, but also simple. Lots of colour works well, bolding specific times and dates that are important, as well as creating hyperlinks so students can easily click on these links and be linked to more information or where they can sign up for these volunteering events. And it's also important to use language that they will understand. So we don't need flowery language, we just need the simple key points. I also communicate with students via social media, such as Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest, and it's important to post on Facebook and Twitter really regularly. For example, if we've got a plot day coming up and we need volunteers for tomorrow, then we'll post it straight away, but we won't just post it once in the day, we'll post it quite a few times, because if we post it at 10 a.m. in the morning and students check their Facebook at 4 p.m. in the evening, they might not see that we've posted that earlier on in the day. So it is important to keep posting even though it's the same thing. And it's important to communicate a continuous stream of events so that students don't lose interest in the same events that you're hosting all the time. And it's also important to let them know that students can take part in all different ways, whether that being just an hour planting seeds on a plot day, or if that be more committed roles such as the Leicester Award. In addition, it's really important to focus on employability, so link in with the careers agenda and highlight the specific skills they will develop. So for example, if students want to attend a conservation day, you might highlight that they'll develop team working skills. So it's great for them to provide examples of experience for employees at, such as at interviews and assessment centres. Also, we always try and bribe students with free food, such as cake, and this can be very effective if you really need some volunteers or an event seems quite low on numbers. It's always a good incentive for them to come along. And it's also important to make students feel like they're part of a team. So, for example, we've kind of branded ourselves with hoodies. We also give out canvas bags at freshers, mugs and pens with the Environment Team logo on. So everyone can really easily recognise us. It's also important to be really friendly and approachable and be really enthusiastic towards students, and allow them to come to visit you whenever they need. So for example, we have an office over on a different campus to the main Students' Union, but we do have a hot desk at Students' Union as well. So we make sure that if students need to come and visit us, if it's just to get a logbook signed off, that we're in that office for them if they need us. So it's important to be available, catering to their needs. And it's also important to give students responsibilities and ownership, such as at Fair Trade Fortnight, for example, leadership positions at Fair Trade Fortnight, we had a banana smoothie bike, and we appointed team leaders, so these students were able to instruct others what to do, and it felt like they had a sense of responsibility. And if you care, then they care as well. And then the don'ts would be, hold on, bear with me. There we go. Okay, so the don'ts, we learned the hard way. You shouldn't be inflexible because their studies come first. It's also important to not tolerate tardiness. These students are being trained for the real world, and if people sign up to an event and don't turn up, you should expect an apology. Also, it's important to underestimate their lack of experience, particularly for project management. We, as the environment team, are able to train students. If they're enthusiastic and have a brain on them, then it's pretty easy to train them for the real world. And it's important to relax because dealing with students can be quite tiring sometimes and quite frustrating. And it's important to not be too intimidating or too formal, and it's important to focus on making engaging a positive experience for everyone. That's why I think by having an intern such as me who's able to communicate with students is probably better than a full-time employer communicating with students, because they sometimes do find older people a bit, intimidating and a bit unapproachable. Students and recent graduates are far better at communicating with new students than someone who's got far more years of experience. Okay, so that's the end of our discussion. But we do have, if anyone has any questions, then we could open them up right now. Emma, could you unmute, please?
Yes, hello.
Hello, can you hear Sandra?
No, I can't.
Oh, I think, yes, have I been unmuted?
Yes, you have, yes.
Brilliant. It was quite confusing, actually. We've swapped, so I'll be coming up as Hazel, and Hazel will be coming up as me. So, if people can be unmuted, we would like to open it up to the floor. So, apologies for talking at you for hopefully not too long. Hopefully, you're still with us. Now, to open it up to discussion. Hopefully, we've provided some food for thought over your lunch break. These are some ideas. These are some things that we thought might prompt a bit of a discussion. But if you might have your own ideas.
Hi, Sandra and Hazel.
Hi. If you can say who you are and where you're from, that's really helpful.
Yeah, my name's Finn. I'm from the University of Bradford. I sort of run an engagement program down here. One thing particularly was looking at employability. We did want to do something like an employability award that you did at Leicester. My sort of question was, did you take any measures to make sure it seems that, well, basically it'd look like a good award to have once they'd finished university? So, for instance, if you get senior management signatures and stuff like that, or else is it more just a statement, really?
The Leicester Award.
Mm.
I mean, Hazel actually did the Leicester Award as a student, but she didn't do the sustainability one. Do you want to say about why you did it?
Well, I didn't do the Leicester Award for Sustainability. I did one for leadership and management, but I did it because I thought it would boost my employability with all the different skills that I learn, and within the ones that I did, employees from different sectors and different companies came in and they were able to talk to us, so I felt like I was gaining some commercial awareness and experience in that way. But in terms of the Leicester Award being recognised, it does go on students' academic transcripts at the end of the year, and it's something that's great to talk about in interviews if you go for one.
Okay. I mean, would you look into sort of maybe getting accreditation from senior management so it just makes it look a bit more official?
I think it already is. I mean, it is an official. It's very well recognised. It's a very thorough programme. There are lots of different ones. If you want to talk to me more about the Leicester Award outside the programme, outside of this, sorry, I can put you through to our careers people who will tell you all about it, because it's a big programme. It's been running for a few years here.
Sure, I'd appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. The best thing to do is to send me an email outside of this, and I'll forward you on to the right people, because all I can talk about is the Leicester Award for Sustainability. But all we did is hijack the Leicester Award, really. It was the Career Development Service that were already doing it, and we said, this is brilliant, we want a sustainability one.
Yeah, I tried to do a similar thing. But yeah, that's the way to go about it, really.
Yeah, I mean, the students that do it are so enthusiastic about it. Okay, we've got a question come up. Do you find more international EU students engaged than UK students? From Adam Gorn. Yes. Well, no, I think we thought it was the case, but actually when we looked at the breakdown, it's about 50-50, is it?
Yeah. I think definitely by engaging with the students this year, I felt that there's been more home students than EU or Chinese international students, which is kind of surprised me, because I always thought more international students were involved, but I feel like it is 50-50 really.
Yeah, we thought it was more international students until we actually did the numbers, and it turned out not. I think international students possibly just, they're more reliable, they turn up more. Chinese students are the best. They absolutely love conservation work, and are really yeah, but we do find international students, I mean, to be honest, we have a real mix. I think as long as you have a good variety of engagement opportunities, you'll get a good variety of students. For me, the biggest problem is that we have so many more girls than boys. And I think that's endemic across the sustainability sector. So we're always trying to find ways to make engaging with us slightly more manly, which doesn't always help, because our interns are always girls, so they have girly ideas, and even just things like making sure our hoodies are a bit more gender neutral and things like that. And some of the ideas that we have, maybe have some competition and things like that. So there's another story here, another question from someone without a microphone. Green Impact student-led groups, how did it work, and how did staff members respond? Student-led Green Impact thing kind of came from them, actually. We got students to help with the auditing. In fact, they ran the auditing of Green Impact from one year, and then those students said, "This is great. Why don't we have a Green Impact team in our department?" This is what happened originally, and I think it was someone in geology and in engineering, the same thing. These students had been involved as volunteers. They were inspired by Green Impact. So we taught them about what Green Impact was, and they went back to their departments, and the staff members responded really well, because they didn't have a choice. If students tell the staff that they want something, then they have to do it. But what the students did was they took on all the arduous Green Impact tasks. You know, putting the posters up and making sure the right communications went out and things like that. And they just found one or two staff members who would help them. They tended to enjoy doing projects type thing. They tended to do awareness events and things like that. So it went down ridiculously well, and it was a really nice way actually of students engaging with their departments in a different way. And they often engaged with the admin staff and things like that, like they wouldn't normally. There's a question here that Hazel can answer. Said, "Who manages your mailing list, and how frequently you send it?" Hazel manages our mailing list.
And how frequently?
And how frequently? You said how frequently?
So I manage the Her Environment Team volunteer mailing list. Usually we get most of our sign-ups during Freshers Week. So I'll input their names and email addresses into a big giant Excel spreadsheet. But we also do have a volunteer record keeper who's been able to help me manage the entire volunteer database as well. And that involves recording all the volunteer hours that people have done on all different volunteering events and making sure that people are rewarded with the recognition they deserve. So, for example, if a student's done 30 plus volunteering hours, then they're owed a hoodie, and if they've done 15 hours, then they're owed a t-shirt.
Any more questions or discussion? If you've got anything that you do that we don't, we want to hear from you guys. You know, we're not the experts on this. We've just been on an interesting journey for the last few years, but like I said, we've not really got the Student Society up and running yet. That's a work in progress. If anyone's already done that, I'd like to hear from you and what that experience is like. And also getting it into the curriculum, because although we have optional modules and we've got it into some things, we're nowhere near where we would like to be in terms of getting engaging with academics. Everyone has questions online. Perhaps people are shy.
It says, what training programs do we offer to engage students? Do you want to answer that? Or do you want me to do it?
Okay, I'll do that. We offer quite a lot of training. Obviously, there's the formal things like Leicester Award. What we do a combination of, we work with careers because they obviously do employability training and things, and they do it a lot better than we can. We did it off our own back at first, and it was a bit hit and miss, and they already do this stuff. Why would we spend time on something that they're better at? But what we did do was to get some of the employability stuff that they do, and tweak it to have a bit more of a sustainability slant, and so that and also to look at our opportunities and what they, especially with finalists. So we do something this time of year so that they can say, right, these are the things that you've got engaged with. This is how they can translate to your CV and to interviews. Because I got frustrated every year, especially by our intern applications. These were students that I knew, and I knew they were good, and I was getting these abysmal applications because this is what Leicester Award focuses on as well, is getting them to reflect and think about how engagement with us can translate into something tangible, into a skill that an employer is after, and making that leap is quite difficult. So we do specific courses, but careers run them and we tweak them. But we also do quite specific stuff for things like events that we're having. We had last year's Go Green Week was all about ESD. It was all about getting sustainability in the curriculum, and it was student-led, as Go Green Week is. But we helped the Student Union run a training program for the students who had volunteered on that to just talk about what ESD was all about and you know, what they could talk to students about. And in the end, they did a massive petition, they did photos, they did loads of things. And we let them run with it, but they wouldn't have been able to do that had we not done some training with them first. Obviously, those that are involved in things like the Food Growing Project and things like that get a little bit more formal training. Some of them have even gone on beekeeping courses and you know, various things. I don't know if any of you have a HEAR, a Higher Education Academic Record. It's quite new. I think Leicester's one of the pilot sites, but so that's something that's going to be wider, I think, with universities. And through that, students have to do a certain amount of volunteering, and they have to have gone on a certain amount of training as well. So it's worth thinking about that if your organisation is bringing in the HEAR, to think about your training so that your students, anyone that's engaged with you, will get some kind of higher HEAR record. Okay, so there's lots of things happening. Sorry, I'm just reading the chat box. The HEAR report is useful. One question: can you outline the reasons why businesses prefer green graduates? Just for some of the things said at the start, but I mean, this is something that we're finding it doesn't hurt. If you Google pretty much all major companies now, they have some kind of sustainability strategy. They have, even if they just pay lip service to it on their website, you know, a bit of greenwash, but generally they have some kind of sustainability thing. And I think that's something quite important, and certainly this is what, interestingly, a lot of our students are coming and saying we need to know about sustainability because our future employers want us to know about that. And the first person who said that to me was actually the Director of Research in Management, and he came to me and said, what can we do to get our students a bit more clued up, because they are asking, they are going to the, you know, as management students, as undergrads, and saying, we know that businesses are interested in sustainability. What can you teach us about it? Because they need to be confident. So I'm probably not the best person to tell you why they prefer. You probably need to go and ask them. But all I know is that they do. And I think it's our job to produce green graduates. I also like the idea as well, particularly with international students. It's a good justification for having them in terms of obviously, international students are a great benefit financially, and it's not something that we would want to discourage the university from having, not that they would anyway, but there is a high carbon cost of flying people over from the other side of the world. And my way of looking at that is if while they're here for the year or 3 years, we can teach them a little bit about sustainability and then send them back, then whatever they do in whatever country they're in, we've hopefully influenced that country just a little bit, and I think that is one of our the best outputs that we as an institution can have. My personal opinion. When business, sorry, I'm reading the chat box again. Why businesses take it in their business strategy and universities only take it as an environmental topic? Why is there a difference? How can universities integrate into their business strategy? If I had the answer to that, we would have done it by now. I'd be very interested in other people's take on that. If people want to unmute themselves, by the way, you can. I think she has made it so that you can do that. So if people want to talk, I'm conscious that I'm doing all the talking and everyone else is just typing. I would love for us to integrate it into our business strategy. I think only a couple of universities have successfully done that. I think it's coming. I think it's happening. I just think we're lagging behind. That's where I started. I think businesses are way further ahead of us than that. And we need to drag our institutions kicking and screaming into the sustainability age, unfortunately. So, Mohammed, thanks for your question. I wish I could answer it better. If anyone else would like to offer an answer to that, then I would be delighted to hear. But for me, that's the ongoing challenge: is getting universities to see sustainability as an inherent, an embedded part of what we do. And frankly, that's our mission statement in our environment team, is to encourage the university to. Okay, Mohammed's sitting in the corner. Can you name universities that have done this? Well, actually, at the EAUC conference the other week, there was a lady from Wales, from one of the Welsh universities, who's done this really well. Emma might be able to shed light on that a little bit more, on that presentation I went to, because I was really inspired. So have a look back to the EAUC things. I went on the first day, and it was one of the workshops, and she was brilliant. And her name escapes me. Sorry, but
Hello. Yes, I don't know off the top of my head. I can't remember, but I know which presentation you're talking about. And all the presentations are uploaded as resources now on the Sustainability Exchange. So if it helps, I can source that resource, if you like, and share it around with everybody later.
It was on a Wednesday afternoon. It really inspired me, because she started very much with embedding it into the organisation and into the curriculum, and then worked down from that, and actually finished on recycling bins and things like that, which is where most of us start. So I was really inspired by her talk, so I'd go back and have a look at that, actually, if you didn't manage to make it. Ah, Jane Davidson, someone's answered, from Trinity St David's University. That's exactly who I'm talking about. There you go.
There we go.
Thank you, Purdon. I don't know what your name is. Yes, that's exactly who I'm talking about. So I think, yeah, we should have got her. Maybe we can get her to do a webinar on how to embed it into the top level.
Yeah, definitely look into doing that.
I would be interested in that.
As Sandra said, if anyone would like to unmute themselves and join in the conversation, sort of please do. I've stopped sharing the screen now, just because I realised that not everybody realised that they had the ability to do that because they couldn't see. So please feel free. If not, there is, as you can see, there is Sandra's email address up on the screen now. So if, like me, sometimes I can be in a webinar and then suddenly realise 2 hours later that I do actually have a question, I know that Sandra's more than willing to answer any questions by email.
Or forward them to Hazel and she'll answer them if they're more relevant to her. Yep, of course.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Okay, I think it's gone a bit quiet on the discussion front, and
it's 2 minutes to 1. People are probably going back to work.
Yeah, probably if they haven't eaten already, getting a bit peckish or heading back to work. But I would just like to say thank you to Sandra and to Hazel today for presenting, and of course thank you to everybody else for attending. As I mentioned earlier, this webinar is being recorded, so it will be made available later on the Sustainability Exchange, and I will also send a link out to all of you with your certificate of attendance, and so you can feel free to pass that on and watch it again, etc. But brilliant. Thank you again, everybody, and hope to see you on the next webinar.
Yeah, thank you very much for attending. If you've got any questions, just give us a shout.